And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. We're having some technical difficulties here. The SDO and Helioviewer sites are both down. Let's go take a look from stereo A, looking toward the sun at its coronagraph, to check and see if we see any Earth-facing coronal mass ejections or other coronal mass ejections. And there you go. We don't see any. The Earth is off in this direction. And by the way, thanks for tuning in. I be your host, smAsho. And if you're wondering about my outfit, it's because I'm following CDC guidelines today and making sure that you understand what those are. Now we're going to look at the SOHO, and so we're back viewing from Lagrange point 1, right in between the Earth and the Sun, and we don't really see any ejecta there on the LASCO C2 coronagraph. We've got some other images for you, don't worry, folks. We pulled some images from different sites. So here's the SOHO 304 angstroms view, and you can see sunspot 2759. It has been degrading, by the way, and we apologize for the truncated views here, but here's another view from the SOHO movie theater, and you can see the magnetic fields there. Let's see if we can zoom in on this, get a good animation of the magnetic fields. And actually this is pretty good here, the SOHO, and we're looking at yesterday and today. So we did see the biggest X-ray flare of the year, a B4. That was early yesterday. And here's the 171 angstroms view. On the SOHO, the 171 angstroms view looks blue as opposed to gold on the SDO. We'll zoom in on that a little bit so you can see the current state of affairs. I know it's a little bit lower temporal resolution, and we're confident those sites will be back up soon. Here's the view from the LASCO C3. We actually do see a little bit of ejecta there kicking off, and some more collapsing right in that region. And here's another magnetogram from the National Sunspot Observatory. And let's talk about how Google is a scam and not a verb. Yesterday's live stream was demonetized, so no surprise there. We've requested a review of that. And our other two videos were also demonetized. So those are all under review. Don't be surprised if those get turned to private if it's determined by manual review to not be suitable for advertisers. So I've got an idea. Why don't you head to BitChute, where we don't get censored, we don't get shadow banned, and we get hundreds of more views than we do on YouTube. Many, many times more views. Perhaps check out our video, COVID-19, the disease caused by coronavirus cured by hydroxychloroquine. Or perhaps view our 51-minute COVID-19/coronavirus AnyChat live stream from yesterday. Once again, Helioviewer not working. So we're just going to move on to say, no, don't make me burn you. And there you can see that the SDO site also not loading. Next, we're headed to spaceweather.com, where they're talking about yesterday's X-ray flare, again the biggest of the year, which emanated from sunspot 2759. And when we say a small solar flare, X-ray flare, we're talking about as much energy as 100 million Hiroshima or Nagasaki bombs. And that's why they want you to wear a cloth mask, folks, because they don't want you to freak people out if you cough in public. 10.7 centimeter radio flux, a good proxy for sunspot activity. And solar activity in general is down to 69 once again. Here's where stuff is in the solar system. There's where things will be in a week as Mercury starts to lap the Earth and Venus. And Earth moves into this convergence zone with Mars and Jupiter and Saturn. And they're causing a cosmic pile up there every day. Here's where things are right now. You got Jupiter rising first, then Saturn, then Mars, all very close to each other in the sky. As well as in the early evening sky, you can see Venus along with the Pleiades. It's all over the news. And the moon is just in a setting mode. I like to use in-the-sky.org to make myself sky charts. And there you can see that X-ray flare. It was a B4. And we saw a little glimmer of life there in the X-ray spectrum also early this morning, just as we did show prep, actually. Next, we'll look at the real-time solar wind, which is showing us solar wind density of 5.32 protons. Fairly background conditions there. Solar wind speed 426 kilometers a second. There's the data from ACE, and once again looking pretty weird, as it's showing us a much lower solar wind density than the Discover is, and that's not a good sign for the ACE, because that looks anomalous. That does not look like legit data. And part of the reason we say that is because it's based on this information right here. It's 4 hours of geospace magnetosphere movie, courtesy University of Michigan. And since that refreshed, we'll let that play through. And let me give you a better look of my CDC ready protocols. Yeah. I have multiple balaclavas, folks, and one of them is silk. If you want 2 layers, wear a silk one underneath another one. These are the one on my face right now is polypropylene. And here's the ground magnetic perturbations. Nothing too exciting going on there that we see. Although it is a polar excursion, so pretty much everything that's going on is interesting. As we see 2 north poles and a south pole creeping into the Indian Ocean off of the Antarctic continent. There's the GOES magnetometer data, and it's looking quite high there. So we see a fairly smooth curve, but it's at high levels. And that's kind of weird because we don't see the BTBZ doing anything particularly strange. But we do see a South Pole oriented current sheet. So shown here in red, you can see the current sheet is entirely charged up by the South Pole. No North Pole polarity in the interplanetary magnetic field, at least the part on which we live. The data is 1 hour and 3 minutes old. Here's a line of sight field plot. Keep in mind the magnetic environment can change at any time, and we're not seeing any features that would make us think the South Pole will lose control of the current sheet charge. Looks like a little bit of activity down here in the southeast, something to keep an eye on. And when I say eye on, the pun is not lost on our fans. Next, looking at the relativistic electrons, they're back into moderate levels. GOES electron flux, pretty low here. And no expectation of seeing this go back into warning territory today. Next, we'll look at the ionosphere. There's 6 hours of data from that. Looking a little bit wobbly there on the midnight portion. You can see a significant F-flare shown in red. But otherwise looking fairly normal here. There's the latest image at 8:30 Universal Time. Next, we'll look at windy.com's pressure maps. We'll let this advance about 1 day into tomorrow, Monday, around noon. We'll hit pause again. This is the GFS forecast. There's where we expect things to be at noontime Eastern Time tomorrow. Looks like a significant low pressure system there in between Iceland and Greenland. Next, we'll check out the chat, and then we'll say, no. Remember, folks, the best way to destroy evil is to cast light on it. Next, we'll look at the earthquake rundown of the past 24. The The largest of the past 24, I think, is that 5.4 at Tonga, not at depth. And that one coming in almost very close to 24 hours ago. And we see a deep quake at Chile. It's at 4.2 magnitude and 109 kilometers. And we're just going to let the list scroll here. By the way, we see a series of quakes in Idaho. Let's just show you the location of that, as there are a ton of quakes happening in that region. And yes, if you're wondering, Yellowstone has been added to the list at Volcano Discovery. So that's a little odd. Let's get back to the list here. We will cite anything big, especially over a 6 or at odd depths. So here's a very deep quake at Fiji. It's a 4.4 magnitude at 545 kilometers depth. And then only about an hour later, we see another deep quake at Indonesia, a 5.0 magnitude at 127.9 kilometers. And there's the end of the last 24. Cosmology segments are still kind of suspended here. We were going to do one yesterday, but we ended up with too much stuff to cover once again because of you know who. I would invite you to check out the Swiss propaganda research site. It's swprs.org. There is some interesting information there on Fisher-Price, My First Pandemic, and a lot of interesting information there as the Swiss doctor is evaluating propaganda, of which there is a ton of it on the internet. A bunch of idiots that have no idea what they're talking about, think that they're suddenly experts in virology and human health in general, and everybody's out there calling for more government
interventionism,
which is not how you fix a recession or a depression, by the way. What are you doing when you're holed up? Well, why don't you learn some Kung Fu from Dr. Jwingming Yang? Now, I've read 2 of his books. Check out YMAA. It's YMAA.com. Dr. Jwingming Yang's Qigong School. Now, I've read his books both on Shaolin White Crane and Shaolin Long Fist. Not in that order, in the opposite order. And they are fantastic books. Especially the Shaolin White Crane one has about 80 pages of general health stuff that has nothing to do with the specific Northern Chinese martial art of Shaolin White Crane. So perhaps check out his website. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube on how to do Tai Chi and so on. So if you're not familiar with Dr. Jwingming Yang, he is one of the leading authors of martial arts publications in the world. YMAA.com. Highly endorsed. And I just wanted to talk about remdesivir real quick. A drug that was used against Ebola is now in trials. So we've updated smAsho.com's forum section on COVID-19/coronavirus. Northwestern Medicine launched a COVID-19 drug trial using this Ebola drug. So we've got an article on that. Also, clinical trial for drug combination that we reported on March 19th. Hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. So now Rutgers is doing a study on that, thank goodness. As you don't need to wait for a vaccine when there's a cure out there, folks. So everybody's freaking out that it's going to take 12 to 18 months to create a vaccine. But guess what? There are already cures. And what's the best cure? Oh, just being healthy in general. Because the more people we test, the more obvious it is that most people show mild to 0 symptoms, which is why the mortality rate will drop and drop and drop and drop. Here's an article from the CDC we picked up also. Recommendation regarding the use of cloth face coverings. See what I'm saying? Especially in areas of significant community-based transmission. I'm not looking forward to being out in public with everybody masked up like ninjas, but it's going to happen, I guess. So perhaps read that article also. Also, we've got another one about the lesson of a crash that cured itself. Why did the Great Depression last so long? Because of government interventionism. Yes, the government jumped in the way of business. And by the way, it's not a benefit for the economy for the government to say, hey, buddy, we're going to give you a job. Go build that trench over there. Okay, you dig the trench, and the government says, hey, fill that trench in. That is not a boon to the economy. That is a waste of taxpayer dollars. Anyway, here's the article from CDC recommendation regarding use of cloth face coverings. Wonderful, just wonderful. I would prefer not to change my grocery shopping techniques at all. And let's look at the economy. First, we're going to look at cryptocurrency. Here's the one-year chart of Bitcoin as reported by the Coinbase exchange. It has come well up off of its lows, and that is a good thing, as it indicates money going into what people believe to be safe havens. Let's look at Ethereum. There's the one-year chart of Ethereum, which I have preferred over Bitcoin from day one. There's the Ethereum, quote, one-year chart as reported by Coinbase, which, by the way, there's a link below the video. If you want to try crypto investing, use our Coinbase link and you'll get $10 free of Bitcoin. You can cash it out, invest whatever you want. It's free money. If you don't have a crypto account, why not set one up using our link? Next, we're going to look at a couple other things here. So on Friday, the S&P was down a little bit. NASDAQ and Dow were all down a bit. There are the biggest losers. Paycom Software, Xerox, MGM Resorts, I don't know what that is, Wynn Resorts Limited. And we see some bit of a sell-off here in short-term bonds, especially Japanese, UK, and German bonds, the Bund bond. And it looks like significant buying in long-term U.S. bonds, an indication that money is trying to hide in U.S. dollars, which are being inflated as helicopter money rains down and slush funds are created for all kinds of organizations. Oil is back up to $29 a barrel. Gold is up $11 to $16.48. Silver is experiencing upward resistance at $15 an ounce. Let's check wheat prices. I haven't looked at wheat prices for a long time. And there we did see a big spike toward the end of March. Not surprisingly, the US dollar is looking strong with respect to other currencies, as again, money from around the world is trying to hide in US dollars, and indeed some of it's coming back into the stock market. So that's a good thing, folks. And it's nice to have some good news when the total confirmed cases is now over 1.2 million, total deaths over 64,000, and total recovered 247,000. That's a number that I want to display. And as far as you go, I crush you like bug, and spike pile drive you. Dear viewers, thy power comes from within, not from a government bailout or even a drug. Your own immune system is probably billions of years more sophisticated than any drug, vaccine, government, economic sanction, or stupid rule created by fearmongers to control the population. Next, we'll look at volcanoes, which, by the way, are important contributors to the sulfur cycle, which makes you and plants more healthy. Mount Aso erupting, producing a 5,000-foot plume. Sakurajima not identifiable. Please don't pole vault the caldera. It could be erupting. Dacono exploding. Flight level 8,000 there. Revenador exploding. Flight level 15,000 there. Sabancaya unable to detect. Please don't build a campsite on the lower slopes of Sabancaya, as it could murder you. And Nevados de Chilean exploding, producing a 14,000-foot ash plume. Please don't do a back handspring over Nevados de Chilean. Here are the jet streams of the Western world. And if you're wondering where we are, it's nullschool.net. Here are the jet streams of the Eastern world. Next, we'll look at water vapor maps. Here is Africa and Europe. Here is the Far East and Oceania. Persistent dry air there in the Central Pacific Ocean. And next, we're looking at the water vapor map here. Let me hit refresh. I apologize. Please bear with me as we are streaming this live in order to get the information out as quickly as possible. Looks like a lot of water vapor just built up in the Gulf of Mexico there. Heavy evaporative processes are at work, and a long string of dry air stretching all the way from San Diego to central Tennessee. Let's take a look at that sudden buildup in the Gulf region. Check out the streamers around that moisture. And it is unable to rotate counterclockwise right now. And it is bordered by a bunch of dry air, so there will be one hell of a heavy pressure gradient in this area. If you're on a boat shrimping with Forrest Gump, please be careful. And next we'll look at the U.S. Doppler radar map, since we like to include value-added services. And thanks to all of our loyal viewers for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on other social media websites like Minds.com and Gab. And we're on Twitter, on Facebook. We're on BitChute. It's bitchute.com/smashamash, where we get our legitimate number of views. And we're getting views on the scale of some really, really big YouTube producers over there on BitChute. So I guess what that really amounts to is up yours, Google. By the way, this is lightningmaps.org. It's a real-time lightning map. And hey, Smash Team, especially patrons, thank you very much. We need your support more than ever right now, as we've been actually losing revenue on the channel. So let's talk about our mission, which, by the way, is going to be into nonprofit status by the end of the year, if we have our way. The mission is to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects. All your weather comes from space. To connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, to assist mankind by advancing the study of predictive phenomenon as opposed to BS, and adapt no matter what the adversity is, whether it's a nuclear war, a global pandemic, or if it's, a coronal mass ejection that shuts down the power grid for the entire planet. The goal is to adapt no matter what the adversity is, even when the lights go out. And lastly, to not be ossified in our beliefs and to treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion. So please support us via things like Patreon, PayPal, perhaps Subscribestar. And let's see if the SDO site's back. Did it come back while we did the video? Doesn't look like it did, folks. So we've got no bonus features for you today. But I'll leave you with this. Thank you, Smash Team, for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun. Don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. Remain vigilant, as this too shall pass, and may the solar wind and the propaganda be under your boot. Actually, may the solar wind be at your back, and the appropriate antibodies be in your bloodstream.